Rainbow Six Siege has seen many operators come and go from the meta over the years that has been out. However, interestingly, the operator we're going to be talking about today has managed to stay as one of the most banned operators for many years now. To fully understand the context and to gain a deeper understanding as to why that is, today I'll be going back in time and telling the story of Siege's most banned operator. So let's go ahead and get started. For the beginning of today's story, we need to go back to the start of Year 2 in Siege. Year 2 Season 1, also known as Velvet Shell, is widely considered to be one of the best seasons to ever be released. And this is for good reason. This season, we saw some great balancing changes, some tweaks to the rank system, Coastline as our new map, which is one of my personal favorites in the game right now, by the way. And we saw the introduction of two of the most game-changing operators ever released. The first being Mira, whose gadget completely changed the way the defense played a large amount of bomb sites. Giving defenders access to bulletproof one-sided glass opened up a lot of new opportunities for some amazing setup, and she would be a mainstay in competitive play for years to come. Despite her strength, we're not talking about her in today's video. We're actually talking about her counterpart, Jackal. Jackal, as I'm sure you all know, is a roam clearing operator that tracks defenders' feet and pings their location. At the time of his release, there really wasn't anything like him in the game. Both Dokkaebi and Lion had yet to be released, which gave him a monopoly on the roam clearing role. However, due to Mira's sheer strength, I don't remember Jackal being talked about much. Sure, people acknowledged he was good, but he didn't get talked about nearly as much as Mira. And with the next operators releasing around the corner, he would go completely under the radar. This would result in Ubisoft actually giving Jackal some buffs to hopefully bring more attention to him. The majority of these changes would come in Year 2 Season 3, also known as Operation Blood Orchid. Operation Blood Orchid is another season that was praised for its content at the time. It was released with an unfathomable amount of balancing changes. The new map theme park, which wasn't great, but it would turn into a pretty popular Pro League map, and we saw the introduction of three amazing new operators. The first being Ying, who was extremely strong for supporting plants since she had smokes and candelas. The second being Lesion, who on release completely switched the meta due to his insanely good traps for intel gathering. And then the third and final operator was Ella, who released so overpowered that she became the most picked defender in the game. However, we obviously aren't here for the new operators. We're actually here for the changes to Jackal. In this update, due to Jackal not getting much attention on launch, as I said, Ubisoft decided to buff Jackal's Inox goggles by making them ping opponents 5 seconds faster, and they gave him 1 extra ping, meaning that he now had 5 pings total. This was a pretty good buff for Jackal, and it definitely added to the annoyance he would soon become. However, he still wasn't really being picked all too often. That would change in a future update that was soon to come. The update I'm referring to is Year 3 Season 1, also known as Operation Chimera. On the release of Operation Chimera, the meta was massively changed for the attack. This is due to the two new operators that were released into the season. The first was Finka, who brought her surges to Team Rainbow. These surges allowed Finka to boost her team with faster ADS speeds, extra health, and less recoil. And then the second operator, and definitely the strongest one, was Lion. Lion's gadget, as I'm sure you all know, is his E1D, which at the time forced all people to stand still, and if they didn't, wall hacks would be activated on them. This was beyond busted, and it launched the meta for the attackers into a very aggressive one. And it just so happened that one of Lion's best operators to combo with was Jackal. The reason for this was because you could ping someone with Jackal and then have Lion pop an E1D. This would leave the defender that was being tracked in a lose-lose situation, because if they moved, they would be pinged by Lion. But if they stood still, they would be revealed by Jackal. Obviously, I think you can see how much of a problem this was. This meta was absolutely absorbed by this strategy, along with the occasional Dokkaebi, which made it one of the worst metas of all time for defenders. However, due to Lion being so strong, people didn't really see any problems with Jackal. Sure, he was a little annoying, but compared to someone like Lion, he was nothing. And just like before, this caused people to overlook Jackal as a potentially overtuned operator. However, that would all change when operator bans were added to ranked in Operation Parabellum. Operation Parabellum was a good operation, probably my favorite ever released. This is because the new content it added was insanely good. We saw the introduction of arguably Siege's best map, Villa. We saw two amazing operators in the form of Alibi and Maestro, and we saw the introduction of the operator ban system to ranked. This was an extremely controversial change when it was first introduced, and I would argue it's still somewhat controversial today. People don't like the idea of some operators being basically unplayable in ranked due to their ban percentage. And this worry would be reinforced shortly after the system's introduction, because people immediately began to realize that a few faces were popping up constantly in the ban phase. And one of those faces just so happened to be Jackal. Now, the information wasn't publicly available yet, so circumstantial evidence is all we can go off of. But at the time, I remember how often it felt like he was being banned. It literally felt like every other game it was happening. And the reasoning for this is quite varied. First off, he has the uncanny ability to clear a room in seconds. All you have to do is activate his goggles, and if you don't see footprints, the room is clear. This, in combination with the fact that his roaming capabilities were so good, made him a clearly strong potential ban for any team. However, there was one thing that I haven't mentioned, and that is how it felt to be on the receiving end of a Jackal. I'd argue that the biggest reason in the beginning for Jackal's high ban rate was the annoyance he was to any defender that found themselves against him. Remember, Jackal has absolutely no counters. So if you were tracked by him, you just had to accept your fate for the most part, leaving a lot of people to absolutely despise him. This resulted in his ban numbers skyrocketing. But since these numbers were on paper, Ubisoft kind of just ignored the issue. There wasn't much to go off of, and so people just kind of accepted the reality. However, when the first ban rate charts were released, this problem would become very apparent to the entire community. The first ban rate chart wasn't released until the mid-season of Year 4 Season 3, over a year after the initial system was launched into ranked. However, this chart is very telling into the sheer problem Jackal had become in the ranked season, because in Ember Rise, the season of the first ban rate chart, Jackal was by far the most banned attacker in the game, having a ban rate of 73%. Which is just crazy when you actually think about it. And it isn't like he was underperforming either. According to pick rate charts of that time, Jackal was the most picked operator on the attacking side, meaning that he dominated every statistic you could possibly think of. After this insane discovery, Jackal was definitely on Ubisoft's radar. It was clear that Jackal was in need of some tuning to make him less annoying to deal with, so that his ban rate could hopefully fall. And little did people know that this change was actually right around the corner, because Ubisoft would give Jackal an overhaul just a few months later in Year 4 Season 4, also known as Operation Shifting Tides. Operation Shifting Tides is a great example of a controversial season. The map rework to Theme Park was a poorly received map, to say the least, and only one of the operators, that being Wamai, was enjoyed by the community, since the other operator was so incredibly weak. However, the balancing changes in this update were pretty good. The most memorable change from this update being the complete overhaul to Jackal's functionality. Ubisoft decided in this update to do a multitude of things to his gadget. The first being altering footprints left by operators, causing them to disappear after Jackal scanned them. Then after that, they removed his ability to track people through floors, and they altered the number of times an enemy would be pinged based on a footprint's age. The newer the footprint, the more pings that opponent would receive, up to a maximum of 4. This was obviously a huge nerf because it stopped Jackal from spam pinging the same defender from one footprint, and it forced Jackal to get somewhat close to a roamer to get the full potential out of his gadget. Now, I'm sure you're likely thinking that this meant the end of Jackal's wrath, and you'd be somewhat right. Nowadays, his pick rate is kind of in the dumps, along with his win rate. However, Ubisoft have found themselves in an interesting position. This is because Jackal, despite not performing well or being picked much, is still being banned at an unprecedented scale to this day, falling just barely short of being in first place. And no amount of nerfs can fix him, in my opinion. Jackal is in one of the most balanced states he has ever been in, and there are a lot of situations where, as a defender, you can outright shut him down by using the number of times you are being pinged to pinpoint Jackal's exact location. So the real question is, why is Jackal still being banned? Well, I think it's mainly down to 2 reasons. The first being that people are just used to banning Jackal. Despite both Jackal and Thatcher being nerfed heavily, they are still banned often, and I think one of the factors is comfortability. What is the point of switching things up if what you're doing is already working? Also, I think the fact that he is so difficult to deal with as a new player contributes to this issue. Even though the charts I have shown are for Emerald ranks and higher, Emerald isn't exactly a sign of skill. Neither is Champion. These are just kind of a sign of how much you've actually played the game. And I truly think that a large majority of the player base don't want to have to deal with Jackal due to him being annoying and scary to go against. It really doesn't matter how weak or strong Jackal is. His gadget by design is always going to feel annoying as a roamer. That's its job. So by removing him outright from the lobby, you never have to deal with that feeling ever again. I hope Ubisoft can do something about this for Jackal's sake. The man hasn't been able to be played in over 5 years, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's story of the most banned operator in Rainbow Six Siege. If you did, I make Siege content just like this twice a week, so go subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter if you don't want to miss the next upload. Also, if you want to see yourself in future videos, go ahead and join up in the Discord. I respond to every message you guys send over there, so don't be afraid to stop by and ask me a question. I'm sure we'll have some great fun. Now, if you want to watch another video just like this one, I'll be popping up on your screen right now, where I talk about the operator that dominated Rainbow Six Siege for 8 whole years. I'll see you next time, friends, and peace.